Let's see who's sponsoring tonight's Hazmat Guys Roundtable. Hazmat 101 Consultants. Hazmat 101 Consultants and their instructors can provide quality consulting and virtual or in-person hazardous materials training for your agency. Owner and lead instructor Bob Cascignano is also available for lecturing at your fire or hazmat conference and has in fact done many speaking engagements across the country. Visit their site at www.hazmatconsultants.com or email Bob Cascignano at bob@hazmat101consultants.com. For over 20 years, K&R Plaques have had the pleasure of helping clients choose awards for the people they want to honor. Their state-of-the-art equipment allows clients to design, customize, and personalize the awards they choose for that special someone. With one of the largest selections of plaques, awards, trophies, and clothing apparel, they can deliver quality products to satisfy any customer needs. No order is too big or too small. Visit their website at www.knrplaques.com or email at sales@knrplaques.com. Responder Training. RTE is the leading company in delivering propane training along with emergency response equipment. Responder Training has many propane flaring kits, water injection kits, accessories, and replacement parts available. They also sell the only commercially available 1-inch propane flare kit, appropriately named the Dragon Slayer, because size does matter. Contact our good friend, owner instructor Ron Huffman for more information. You can reach him at 765-524-4848. You can email Ron at respondertraining.rdh.gmail.com or peruse his website at respondertraining.com. Northeast Hazmat has your supplies for leaks. Easy vac pumps, stingers, hoses, rupture seals, and now carrying fire blankets and hazmat apparel. If you'd like to sponsor the show and help keep live hazmat conversations coming in the future and help send at least one lucky participant to a national level hazmat conference, send an email to bob@thehazmatguys.com and he'll send you the information. Thanks a lot. Now on with the show.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
How's it going?
Doing all right. Look at all these guys, handsome punums. We have the Hazmat Roundtable once again with the normal cohorts. In addition to myself, Bob Kosh. I never know which way to point. Bob Kosh, Jay-Z, Mike Monaco, all of them right here, doing hazmat things once again. So, welcome.
Whether you want us to or not.
Yes. No, you know what? I'm kind of excited for today's topic, but is anybody doing anything that's like spectacular this right now?
If you don't mind me mentioning the magazine real quick, hazmathq.com. We just dropped, I think it's our 6th issue the other day. We have now topped over 40 countries. So we're pretty excited. We have also added a few web links in there. If you guys want to email us some articles or whatever, first check out the magazine and you may go, but you'll probably go, yeah. So,
hey, yeah.
Throw the link in the comments, man. Throw that link in there so everybody gets it.
Yeah.
We need the high C guy coming through the walls, Bob. Oh, yeah.
No, that's Kool-Aid.
Kool-Aid, sorry. Kool-Aid, man.
Get your drinks right, for God's sakes.
Unbelievable. What about you, Jay-Z? You just came back from a whirlwind tour over across seas?
Yes.
Playing all the biggest stadiums?
What were you doing?
Doing some training in the UAE, which was fabulous. It was great. My lovely wife joined me, so we tore up Dubai and Abu Dhabi as we normally do, and had a blast. So.
And left.
Yeah,
left. Very cool.
And left, yeah. We left it in shambles like we usually do.
Spank a camel and be on the plane.
Yeah. Yeah. So I sent a bunch of pictures to Ben. We're going to look through those all later. The good ones, are actually the ones I can show.
I was gonna say, are the good ones the good ones?
The good ones are reserved for later.
I like
At
it.
the bar.
No. Maybe
Yeah,
later.
I mean, Mike, when what was today?
How about
Today
you
was
guys?
just
How about you? How about you guys? What are you guys up to? Are you
Us.
guys...
Yeah. I got hammered with 17 outlines I have to do that was due yesterday apparently.
yeah, and I had to do all the where is it in NFPA, OSHA, and ANSI.
Oh, good stuff.
Good stuff. I have it
You
memorized
guys,
now,
listen,
so I'm moving quick.
you guys are killing it. I'm gonna dare say that you're probably the tippy top of the spear training organization going out there. I mean, it's you
Top
guys
of the
are doing
Roman
great
helmet.
stuff.
Just
Yes.
remember,
I would agree with that.
just remember
Yeah.
that there was very motivated people that are dead on the side of Everest. So,
Yes. Yes. Every dead body was once a very highly motivated individual with a lot of skill.
oh, lots of skill there. So,
Nah.
but moving along, it's good. It's good stuff. Good stuff. It's all coming together. I'm sure you can't get away from us on social media. We actually are doing pretty well on that thing. Our game is strong. But
we brought on, I think it's a Generation A or a Gen Z or
they
a Gen.
flew back around the letters.
Yeah, so that's when you get a teenager doing your social media stuff, you end up rocking and rolling.
But tonight's topic, I'm kind of excited for this one because this is.
Yeah, because I got into a little tiff online about this, which
And
I'm guessing is where this came
suggested
from.
it.
Yeah,
That's why I suggested it.
When I saw this in the group, I was like,
"You're welcome. You're welcome."
all right.
This for a while.
All right. The question of the night is to SOP or not to SOP.
That is
the question.
So, and I'm going to say SOPs are absolutely vital for your function.
You're such a liar.
I am
You're
such
a liar.
Who are you and what you do?
I can play the opposite side very well.
I read your post.
I actually never went back to those posts as to not become emotionally upset and just kind of spew.
All right. So how about this? Why don't we say this? Who is pro SOP?
It depends.
I am with a caveat.
Yes, I am with a caveat. I am with a caveat.
All right. I'll give you, because I sat down and I jotted down a couple of ideas, and I only have 4 points, and I will make a quick argument on each one.
Can I ask for a little clarification first on your question? Are you pro SOP for a hazmat tech unit, or are you saying a fire department in general should have SOPs? Who are you? Who is this argument going for? Because if we extrapolate to operations level, yes, I embrace SOPs to no end. But if we're looking at tech, so I just need to know where I'm going to be, where am I attacking a neck or am I attacking the abdomen? What am I going for?
Okay, I will say SOPs are still needed, but they're different for technicians.
Okay.
When you're doing,
I will agree with that.
Operations level people, you have to tell them which way's up, which way gravity will pull you. You have to tell them the basics.
Right.
This is the guardrails of this. And even with with technicians, I think there needs to be SOPs for consistency of training.
Agreed.
Okay. I also think there's and this isn't really my thing, but it's more of the Bob and Jay-Z, is there's a reduction of liability.
Mm-hmm.
Right. By having something written down, you're saying, hey, listen, these are the wide guard, and those wide guardrails could be freaking across the state, but at least we got something written down.
But they got to be wide because you got to be able to encompass
Agreed.
vet changes in variables because you would do the opposite if your SOP was even the slightest bit narrow, and now you had something land outside of there and a technician performed an action and they're now technically outside of the SOP.
Right. And my last one, I'll just bring up this one is communications. Because if we don't have clear communications and words mean something to technicians, especially the technicians, and you go, give me the Fitzer valve or give me the salvo tool, and people are like, what the hell are you talking about? That's not even a real thing.
Right.
That is kind of like, hey, we will use the double diaphragm, pneumatic pump, whatever our slang is around that. That's okay but there has to be the anchor point. That's my points. I'm done.
I 100% agree that ops level should have SOPs because there's and in the ops class that I go around the country and teach, there's so many people that, oh, well, I thought we're supposed to do it like this, or, well, there's nowhere for me to look because we don't have SOPs. And they walk in on a hazmat call and then they get themselves way over their head. So ops level, absolutely.
In fact, it's required by NFPA for operations guys to have SOPs. You can't, as an operations level technician, as an operations level responder, you're not even supposed to have a meter in your hand unless your department is guided by SOPs. Like
very good point, and most people don't know that.
Yeah, that's part of being mission specific. Like in order to operate under a mission specific, there has to be very stringent SOPs in place because we don't train our operations guys to analyze the incident like we do a technician. So it's all like kind of pre-made out cards that a department is supposed to have. A department, not just like, oh, like everybody else does this, so we're going to do it too. You're supposed to open up your department's SOPs and go, oh, look at that. If the meter says 30 parts per million for CO, I'm supposed to evacuate.
Right.
Done.
I will say from the company officer standpoint of the hazmat team, we had SOPs, but to be honest with you, I would call them more SOGs because they were more. Even though the word said SOP, we always treated them as SOGs, where we or I, as the hazmat officer, had the ability to go where the call was taking me and adjust on the fly. And mostly because, not that I'm some great whatever, but because I was the highest ranking person with the education on the scene for that incident. So it was looked upon me like he's making a decision. There's some wiggle room, let's just say, for lack of a better term. So I would call them SOGs for the techs and SOPs for the ops.
So then what would be your definition that separates a G from a P?
Well, I don't mean to interrupt you, Bob, but
no, go ahead.
I was just thinking while you were talking about that, I was glad you brought up SOGs because, and I have to look for it, but there's a court case that happened and they defined both of them, Mike. They defined SOP and SOG. Mm-hmm. And there was definitely a difference. SOP were procedures, and you look at like what Ben says and what Ron says, it's the wording. Shall, must, will, as opposed to may,
recommend,
perhaps, recommend. Yeah. And I think in the guidelines, though, the wording is broad. But in procedures, it's actually you must do that.
If this, then this.
Exactly.
Right.
And I think that's important. In my perspective, I think it's important to understand the difference, and it's important to understand where you're going to use SOPs as opposed to SOGs. SOPs absolutely for operations, SOGs for techs, but there are some places where SOPs are good for techs because, I mean, let's just in the broadest terms, if your department wants you to do medicals before you do a level A entry, you must do a medical before you do a level A entry. And I know that's probably broad, but I think that's a good.
A good delineation of it.
Okay, but now does that example really fall into the situation of what the normal conversation has been? Because I feel like in this conversation online and when we talk and people talk about SOPs, they're always talking about the operational level, not the operational education, but the actual, like, I'm going to perform the operation, like the actual tasks. So where the example that you gave is not really like part of a hazmat operational task. That's more of a something we do before we begin the task. So I don't even though I understand where you're coming from on that, I don't feel like it falls into the category when people are coming online and being like, hey, anybody have SOPs for, handling a leaking drum? It's the actual task that they're looking for, kind of that stamp of this is what we do. And that's where I find it to be a very dangerous thing for a couple different reasons. And where I end up seeing the question asked the most is quite often, departments will take people that have very little hazmat knowledge and put them in charge of hazmat. It just happens to be, right? You became the new captain or the new chief, and okay, now this is your position. You're now running the hazmat team. And I think that overwhelms a non-technician or a new technician. And we're so used to, as firefighters, right, having those SOPs, those operational guidelines. Like, we don't teach our firefighters and our operations guys how to think. We teach them what to do. And when you pull somebody from the firefighter rank and move them to the officer's rank and then put them in a position where now they have to think with variables, I feel like that can become very overwhelming to them. And they fall back on this idea of, well, I need an if-then-then chart to help me guide through. And it's that lack of experience and that kind of that feeling of uncertainty, because hazmat really does involve learning about product, learning about the container, learning about the environment, and then behavioral predictions in order to come up with an operational game plan. That it's just feels so much safer to them to be like, well, I want somebody else to make that decision for me and just tell me what to do.
That's a good point. Very valid point.
Yeah, and I get what you mean. I've been asked many times for SOPs on natural gas incidents, which I say we've never had any. And actually, that's not true. I mean, we had some a long time ago, but they were a little bit obsolete. But in our case, we don't have one because there's just so many different variables, like you said, and that's an actual operation. But can you imagine how making an SOP for all the disciplines and all the things we could encounter?
Right.
I mean, that would be so it'd be so crazy. But Ron makes a good point. SOGs for training, incident specifics, and operations and stuff like that. If you divide it up, I think, and just I mean. This is a daunting task, no question at all. If you were a hazmat team supervisor, leader, whatever, very daunting task to decide what belongs in an SOP, what belongs in an SOG, what doesn't belong at all.
I don't feel like it should be. I feel like we have a very good national foundation, which is NFPA 470. And NFPA 470 says what you should know, how you should operate, the API process. And if you were to just follow that process and you're learning about the product, you're learning about the container, you're understanding breach models, you're understanding prediction and behavioral models, and you are trained to put them all together, then I don't feel like it's as daunting as people think, because then you're not writing SOGs. You're training your men or your sorry, I don't want to get canceled. You're training your men, women, they, thems, right, as to how to think and not just what to do. So I feel like if you're trying to put together SOGs and SOPs for hazmat, it's daunting because it shouldn't be done. Like, you're going against the training, and you're going against the idea that I need to make sure that my people have really good intimate knowledge of chemical physical properties, really good understanding of prediction and behavioral models. You know, we teach that Gitmo behavioral model in operations, and then we almost like never touch it in hazmat technician, and yet it is really a beautiful concept that we have just thrown by the wayside, and we don't formally teach in classes anymore, and yet it is how exactly we should operate and break down a scenario and break down a scene and look to see what's going on. That if you're not doing that, or if you're looking for an SOG or an SOP, it's because you're lacking that training to be able to recognize what you need to do on scene.
I will say that not everybody's on the A team. You're going to have C-level guys that are on the rig.
But is that an excuse?
No, but you can't assume that everybody's on the A team.
But
Here's another thing,
you shouldn't
too.
Then
allow. You
we'll have
shouldn't
3
be
people in
okay with this.
hazmat.
No, but you should. But they should be worked on, right? Like, it shouldn't. You shouldn't. I don't think you can safely put a guy who's on the C team that doesn't understand what what just was broken down and expect them to operate safely. I think you take them and you train them more, and you get them to a level that, okay, maybe they're not the greatest, but maybe 4 B team guys could turn around and perform an operation like 1 A team guy. Like, it's training, and it's consistency, and it's understanding what actually needs to be done, and training in that pathway that will lead you to be like, no, we don't need an SOG. Like, I'll figure this shit out.
I will tell you where the problem with that is. The problem, sorry, JC, the problem with that is management. Because, and I will tell you from firsthand experience, not every time, but if I wanted to go train a new guy, there was no time. We got this to do. We got that to do it on the fly, make it up. And there was a lot of times we did a lot of stuff without the Chiefs knowing about it, quite honestly, just to get it done. Now I'm not saying that's right, but when they send somebody to me and they go, he's got the ticket, go. Now I'm having to do on-the-job training, and I gave him specific, for lack of a better term, rules of engagement for X, Y, and Z calls. Everything else, I said, you stay on my coattails, so to speak, like we would in a fire.
So then my question would be, is how come we're not recognizing that in the technician school, there is a lack of this fundamental training to be able to prepare them to go out into the technician world, right? We put, for lack of better words, I feel like, and listen, this is even true where I came from. We put dots on the board, and that's the points of information, but we fail to connect the dots.
Yep.
Well, how about this, though? And maybe it may be different for you guys. You worked on Hazmat 1. You didn't have a lot of people to train. But for us, we've got a region. We got a regional Hazmat team. And we've probably got, I don't know, let's just say 20 Hazmat teams. We have maybe 8 in Phoenix, and a couple in Chandler, a couple in Scottsdale, Peoria. We have to have some consistency with them. Same thing with like Illinois. They got the Maybes teams. And they have a lot of people, and that's actually kind of more common to have this team that comes together than just a solid hazmat team that's in a certain area that serves a city. They get people that come from all over. I think Ben might be part of something similar to that. So if you're having a lot of people that are, you've got a team that's with, like, we must have like 600 or 700 hazmat technicians in the Phoenix region. You have to have some sort of stuff down that is in writing, because all of a sudden what starts happening, like when it happened in our special operations program, is one team starts using the MPD because they think it's great, and we think it's great too, but it's out of our regional tool and equipment inventory. So they start using the MPD, and we're running with them, and they're going, yeah, we're using the MPD. Like, we don't train on this. So you start to get kind of offshoots and stuff like that. And I think staying consistent, because you have a larger team, you have people you don't really know that come from different areas. That might be the glue, perhaps, that holds it together. Perhaps.
So then the issue then becomes it's the equipment, not the technique, that starts to differentiate the operation.
It could be either.
Okay.
They could adopt a technique that let's just say they adopt a technique for stopping a drum from leaking, and we'll go basic like that. And you're like, that doesn't sound really good. It doesn't sound consistent. Well, we trained with it and we think it's good. And it's like, well, you didn't run that by the committee. It's out of the SOP.
Okay, right there. That's exactly all right. Why is there a committee to tell me how to do my job? Why is there somebody who's not on scene telling me how to operate?
Well, I maybe I misworded it, but take for example, going back, I can't really give you the hazmat specific, but I can go back to like the because this really did happen. A city was using an MPD as a descent control device, which is fine. I mean, I think it's great. It was a great tool at the time. We just didn't transition to it yet. They wanted to use it because they said, hey, this is a no-brainer. And we were like, yeah, but we have not transitioned to it yet. So that's actually a piece of equipment, but it's also a technique.
Okay.
One and the same. I can't think of one off the top of my head that would be hazmat. There probably is. But I'm just saying, I think if we're talking about how we're going to delineate this and whether we need SOPs and SOGs, I think they have their place. But I do agree. I think it's more of a daunting task, especially for somebody who has hundreds of people that are involved in their region as hazmat responders.
Well, special operations in general has always been we're bringing the big toolbox. We don't know what tool we're going to need. And we grab what we need, and then we figure it out when we get up to XYZ scene. So that's where we have more of a flexibility. And again, I'm totally on board with ops level. Absolutely need to have SOPs for hazmat calls. And that's why I say the guidelines are more for hazmat technicians. And when I say guidelines, I'm talking about like, we're going to a powder call. Do I need to be in a level A suit for a powder call? I think everybody here would recommend no. Okay.
Well, I mean,
but we had people that if we didn't write it down, that you have the flexibility, but the recommendation is this. Again, that kind of goes back to the guideline, not the procedure.
Shouldn't the recommendation be where NFPA is, right? Let's go on scene, learn about your hazards. What is the product? What is the environment? What is the situation? What is the harm model, right? Like, how is this going to affect me? Can it affect me? And what's the best PPE for this situation for whatever? Because you're right. A white powder, you would generally kind of think, okay, I could do like a B or a C, but I guarantee you with enough time on the internet, I could find a skin powder, a powder that would react with skin. Let's say it's a fine acid powder, and let's put it in a wind tunnel. Well, I'm going to want a level A for that. So why should there be something in place that I now have to fight with somebody to do the right thing because there's a policy in place that prevents me from operating the way I need to operate?
I think the policy is more for the technicians, more the guideline up to a point. And the caveat we mentioned earlier should be that the incident commander, the hazmat, let me clarify this. The hazmat leader, commander, whatever term you're using, has the ultimate or final decision on the tactic, the PPE, the whatever. The recommendation guideline is to this point, but the ultimate final thing is based on the information, the person making a decision.
Right, but why even spend the time? Why even spend the time to create that policy and put it in writing and disseminate it? Like,
You know what it sounds like to me? It sounds like, again, I'm standing over here, I'm just sitting quiet on this thing. It sounds like there are rules to hazmat, but the rules to hazmat should be whatever Mike thinks they are.
Yes. Okay. No, I think the rules.
Whatever I feel like they are, that's what the rules are right now.
I think the rules to hazmat should be whatever the technician that's in the situation deems
Right. So
is
where
necessary.
is that point where we have gone above this point, and now the tech has to be like? I agree that SOPs stifle creative solutions.
Okay.
Yes, I agree.
Right? I think that, like, when we have those guys that are like the rescue guys and they love doing creative out of the box things, and we say no, you will stay between this black and white box. That pissed me off to no end when I was in rescue battalion. But there's a point where shit's on, and now the rules have dissolved because let the talent play, because this is what we pay them for. Like, this is where they live, is at above this threshold. So I think more of what maybe I don't want to put words in your mouth or anything, but I think there is a certain level of SOG where if we go past this point and we've peaked it, now talent has to step in and say, based upon NFPA guidelines, experience, blah blah blah, we have to do this because of this. That's where the valid argument comes from. That's where like all those things, but there has to be guidelines to a threshold.
Yeah, I think the operation is the operations level is the threshold, and I think the technician and the training is what supersedes that. That's my argument. My argument is, yes, you're 100% right, and NFPA has done a very good job of delineating where that line is, and it is operations to technician. And the moment that you need the technician to arrive on scene, they should have given the education and the training to be able to come up with what is necessary for that situation.
Now I'll throw this out there. You mentioned training, so I know an entity, not mine, for the record, that went to a powder call 2 days in a row, the same place. One shift went in with wearing level B. One shift went in wearing level A. Exact same place, exact same call. It just happened to be twice in a row.
Okay.
So they're all trained. They all have the same level of training, the whole 9 yards. So why is one wearing one thing, one wearing the other, when they had the exact same information, the exact same call 2 days in a row? That's a lack of training or understanding. So you have to have a guideline up to, as Bobby said, a certain point. And then, I hate to say it, common sense also needs to come into play here somewhere as well.
Well, was there clearly a one was wrong, one was right?
Yes.
Okay. If there was clearly a one was wrong, one was right, then that is a training issue. But that's not an issue that an SOP or an SOG is going to fix. Because now you've just
But they were trained the same.
What's up?
They were trained the same.
Right, but you're saying put an SOP. Right, the training is the issue because clearly somebody was not properly trained or they weren't paying attention, right? Like, that's what I'm saying. It is a training issue. I can put two guys through the same class. If one guy is not up if somebody walked away from the training and got something totally different than what the training actually was, maybe they don't belong there. Like, an SOP or an SOG is not going to fix somebody who can't learn how to do the job.
It's a good start on a scene. Let's say that a starting point. and then you go from there with the talent, like Bobby said. But again, like what you're saying, Mike, I agree also to a point where it shouldn't be black and white. This is in writing. You should get to a point, and like Bobby was saying, after that, you gotta let the talent go.
One other thing I'll say, and it was kind of like something that popped up in here, is that when you do write your SOGs or SOP, whatever we're using, I don't give a shit. Whatever letter we're using this week, is that once they're written, guys usually do high fives and like, "Woo, we're done, man. Put them in the books. We're done." And that's you write out your career on that book. When things switch, when lithium-ion batteries come up, and think nobody wants to update that shit. Like the flexibility in updating, because then certain guys resist the updating because that's my legacy.
Right.
Like I wrote that, and that's my gift to the fire department. So they'll resist that crap. And then another guy, like, I don't want to have to do anything here. I don't want to have to do any work. And or they're afraid to show that they don't know what to write, which is probably even equal of a problem. But the sweet spot of writing an SOP, SOG, to give it the proper amount of rigidity with the right amount of softness for that guy to get out there and do it, I think is the trick. And it's not, if it was that easy, everybody would have the same book.
True. Wait. Are you saying there's no easy button in hazmat? Did you just say that?
There is no easy. That's right.
Okay.
Because Bob, correct me if I'm wrong, but where was the SOP book for Hazmat 1 in FDNY?
There was none.
There was none. There was not a single written SOG for Hazmat. Operations, totally different story. There's a whole book on operation, a whole book, like multiple chapters, like if this, then this. We never had a single SOG in writing.
Just to put that in perspective, for the FDNY, we had our books, our SOGs were, I think, 6 5-inch binders full of paper. Everybody had to study. To become a lieutenant, you had to memorize it.
It was loose leaf stacked up. It was about that tall.
It would barely fit into a milk crate if you put the papers on end. So that's how much paper you're talking about, at least a box of paper, and you got to memorize it to become lieutenant. FDNY Hazmat 1, 0 SCPs. There was a couple of tools kind of thing, but nothing like you shall or nothing like that.
You guys must have the same people write our lieutenant's test. Jesus Christ. Good stuff.
I loved it.
Good stuff.
Yes. It's definitely a slippery slope, and I think I hear so many people out there talking about SOPs, SOGs. That's why I say I think they're needed, but again, I think it's just a very daunting task to delineate that and decide where you're going to use it. I mean, we've had guys as simple as they're going into the hazard zone and they're not in proper PPE.
Right.
I mean, that could be a simple.
That's a lack of training.
Well, it's not a lack of training. It's stupidity. But what you can do with it, and you can't, because you can. It gives your discipline some teeth. It can give your discipline some teeth as well, because that's how you get rid of the people that are driving you down. It's like, hey, you went into this hazard zone and you were not protected. And they're like, well, I just wanted to get a good look on it. And it's like, well, you violated our SOP. So, and it's an easy one. It's a simple, very easy one. I'm not going to get an SOP or even an SOG on how to plug a barrel. I'm simply not going to do that.
Right.
But if you need SOPs or SOGs to keep the stupid people out, which there are, and if you argue with me on that, that's a lost cause, because you know that you have the A people, the B people, and there's some D people.
There is.
But it can't. But you still got to put it in writing of some sort. And
you will wear the proper PPE.
Yeah, you got to wear. Yeah, you go into a hazardous atmosphere, IDLH atmosphere. You have to have your mask. You have to have your SCBA and your mask on. Simple. Yeah, it sounds really stupid. It sounds like a lack of training, but it's not. It is not, because they do it.
And the departments that don't have dedicated teams really need to have something, because they're, as Jay-Z said, they're so spread out. They may not train except for once a month or every other month or whatever, or there's no consistency.
Okay, but here's a question on something that Jeff just said, right? Do you need to have a written, right? So that fact right there, you have to have an SCBA on if you're going to enter an IDLH environment. Do you really have to take the time to repeat that when that is primarily reflected in multiple NFPA documents?
Unfortunately, yes.
Yes.
But I mean, do you have to have that as an S in order to turn around and say, like, you're off the team because you can't perform properly? Look here, right? Does it have to be a department SOP that was violated, or can you turn around and go, look, you violated this NFPA, this NFPA, and this NFPA. You operated improperly.
NFPA
Have to be written down.
What's up?
NFPA is a guideline.
I know it is, and that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
like,
but if you have a procedure. If you have a procedure, like take, for example, Phoenix Fire Department's Volume 2, where you can't have sex in the station. Well, I mean, that's probably, yeah, we all know that. Does it happen? Probably. It shouldn't happen, but there's somewhere in NFPA guideline, it probably says it or doesn't say it. It doesn't matter, but it's in our SOP that says you can't do this. Guess what? You're being disciplined for it. I don't even know NFPA.
And you're not going to get disciplined off.
I see. I said you're looking to hook guys up. I see.
Yeah, you're not going to get somebody disciplined off NFPA.
Okay.
Hey, I'll tell you what. My job was a little different from yours in the last part of my career as a safety officer, and I saw some stupid things. And I multiple times had to go up. Me and my partner Daryl, we'd have to call guys aside and go, "Hey, what are you doing?" And they acted like they had no idea. And it's like, yeah, you did this. And they said, well, what's wrong with that? And it's like, that's dumb. And they go, well, yeah, I guess. It's like, what do you mean you guess? Very rarely did anybody go, yeah, I fucked up. I'm sorry. It's like, okay, well, that was good because they knew. And from that point on, it was over with. But so many times they just, they're just like, they're battling you on it. And it's like, they're trying to get away with so much stuff. Right. And it's very, very frustrating. I lived it as a safety officer. I really did.
I want to answer Ron Kaufman's question. If everyone has their own SOPs, then how do teams function on mutual, or I guess everyone not, how do the teams function on mutual aid or large incidents if their SOGs differ? Perhaps a template for teams to adapt similar actions. No, what you do is you come together and you do the API model, and you analyze and you plan and you implement together.
Yeah, unified command. Just you adapt that, and then it's the same with us. We don't go on tile roofs and vent tile roofs. Well, one of the cities next door, they do it. So we have to get together to decide if that's going to be an option, or they usually know that we don't do that because there's an SOP for it. So.
Yeah, and for us, whoever's in charge of the scene, who's ever seen it that's who you're operating under, and that's the SOPs you're operating under, just like you would on a fire.
Yeah. Yeah. So the SOPs. Anyway. Yeah. Well, the SOPs for Scottsdale Fire Department is they'll get on a tile roof and vent it. We go in there. They know that our ladder company is not going to go to the roof, so they'll find some alternate ventilation, or they'll send a Scottsdale ladder to the roof. So I know that's probably difficult, and it's not, maybe apples and oranges, perhaps. But if you have the possibility of running mutual aid or automatic aid with somebody, that all probably should be kind of worked out, and it should be semi-known. perhaps.
Yeah.
Training.
Absolutely.
All right.
Okay.
You guys suck.
Sorry I was so quiet tonight. You know,
No,
it's
it's good. It's good.
It's not a topic that I really feel passionate about in any way, shape, or form.
Oh shit.
I think what we should do with this is ask: was anybody hurt in this operation, either physically or feeling wise?
No, you know what? Even better. Why don't you send us an email? Maybe we'll have round 2 of this. Maybe we'll invite other people on to give their perspectives from a guest point of view, and you know, and plug in and if there's a strong, excuse me, if there's a strong feeling out there, let's get their voices out there, because I think there's a lot of people maybe not asking the question, but thinking about the question. This is a question that
Oh, yeah.
never goes away.
Never does.
This is, they've been talking about this for, like, I remember it wasn't long ago, maybe 15 years ago, they went from SOPs to SOGs, maybe 20 years ago. And I was
Right.
like, oh, shit, we got to switch over. And ever since then, it's been a back burner, low simmer conversation across the planet. So I would love to hear other things.
How about a shameless plug, Bob?
Okay.
Why don't we ask an old timer on tomorrow's
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah, on the after action report, who's we'll lovingly call them dinosaurs, if what their thoughts on SOP versus operating is.
Oh, that's a good idea. All right, well, tune in tomorrow night to find out that answer.
Shameless plug.
All right, well, Bob Kosh, Jay-Z, Mike Monaco, signing out. We won't see you next Tuesday, but it'll be another Tuesday soon.
See you another Tuesday.
See you guys.
See ya.